Hello everyone and welcome to week 2 of my 007 minute reviews. This week we'll be discussing From Russia with Love, again directed by Terrence Young and starring Sean Connery, released 1963. From Russia with Love is the second of the 23 films and counting Bond series, or, if you prefer, the second and final film of James Bond's serious spy thriller series, with the next film, 1964's Goldfinger, kicking off a new series of over-the-top comic booky action flicks that would carry us at least through the Pierce Brosnan era. Now, that's not an insult. On the contrary, the span of films from Goldfinger onwards contains many of my favorite films of all time, and any Fleming purists hoping to hear me eviscerate the Roger Moore era will be disappointed to hear me explain my head-over-heels love for those films in a couple of months. But it's simply to state that From Russia with Love, and to a lesser extent Dr. No, are very different beasts from what we would come to know as Bond formula and expect from the series. Yes, From Russia has Agent 007, villainy, romance, exotic locales, action, and even the first Bond gadget of sorts. But first and foremost, this is a serious-minded, distinctly non-comedic thriller about international espionage, Cold War-era tensions, treachery, counterintelligence, assassination, and spy games.
I suppose it's customary to have people tailing you in these parts.
Oh, yes, sir. Today it's Citroen H31854 on duty. They're Bulgarians working for the Russians. They follow us, we follow them. It's a sort of understanding we have.
That's very friendly.
It's widely known among Bond fans that Ian Fleming's From Russia with Love was chosen by the producers to be the second film because President John F. Kennedy listed it as one of his 10 favorite books. And far be it from me to presume to read the mind of a man who died over 2 decades before I was born. But looking at the story, I think I can see why a Cold War-era U.S. president would find a lot to enjoy in how it layers the real-world political climate at the time into its spy thriller narrative. In this film, Spectre seeks revenge for the death of their operative Dr. No, so their leader Blofeld, along with chess master Kronstein, field director Rosa Klebb, and assassin Red Grant, lay a trap for British intelligence, specifically, of course, for James Bond. First, they trick a loyal Soviet cipher clerk named Tatiana Romanova into thinking she is working for Mother Russia instead of Spectre. She is to seduce Bond and lead him to steal a Russian Lecter decoder device, which I'll admit I don't know exactly what that is, but apparently it's very rare, very valuable, and very important.
But what makes you think that M, the head of British intelligence, will oblige you by falling in with your plan?
For the simple reason that this is so obviously a trap. My reading of the British mentality is that they always treat a trap as a challenge. And in any case, they couldn't possibly pass up even the slightest chance of getting their hands on the Lecter decoder. They have wanted one for years.
Mm-hmm.
The plan is then to have Red Grant take the Lecter and kill both Bond and Tatiana in a staged murder-suicide, with Bond being the supposed murderer, thus getting revenge for the death of Dr. No, making it look like a British agent killed a Russian and fanning the flames of Western Soviet tension, and finally selling the Lecter back to Russia for a good old cash prize. In terms of causing immediate fear for me at home, this plot isn't really any more threatening than Dr. No's rocket toppling. There's no nuclear bomb here. But it's still a vastly superior villainous scheme, rooted in Cold War-era tension, dense and twisty and interesting and vengeful. And it helps that this plot is driven along by a film that's one of those sequels that, unless you were really fond of Dr. No's island settings, betters its predecessor in every respect, Dark Knight Terminator 2 style.
Excuse me, you did say your clock was correct.
Russian clocks are always correct.
First off, the villains. Dr. No was a fine starter villain, but this film kicks the villainy quotient up many notches with its lineup of Blofeld, who gets an incredibly creepy and memorable introduction without ever showing his face.
Their agent, James Bond.
Let his death be a particularly unpleasant and humiliating one.
Rosa Klebb, who, despite her small stature, totally sells herself as Spectre's attack dog.
I will say nothing to anyone.
If you do, you will be shot.
The creepy, bug-eyed chess master Kronstein. And most importantly of all, I think, Red Grant, who is technically a henchman, but steals the film out from under his bosses. He doesn't really have a gimmick, he's just a quiet, skilled, professional killer, but Robert Shaw's brilliant performance makes him into one of the series' most memorable bad guys all the same. Shaw is so good that you almost imagine that if they hadn't found Connery, this guy could have played one hell of a James Bond himself. Most people think of Quint from Jaws when they think of Shaw, but I think of Red Grant. Also important is that, unlike Dr. No, who doesn't make his first appearance in his own film until the last 20 minutes, this film's rogues gallery appears early and often. Red Grant is in the film's first scene, technically appearing before Bond himself, and Blofeld, Klebb, and Kronstein are all introduced very soon after. This is a vast improvement. Imagine a Star Wars where we didn't meet Darth Vader until the final 20 minutes. Wouldn't work. From Russia with Love doesn't quite complete the Bond villain formula. Hold tight one more film for that. But it's a key step in the right direction.
I warned you. We do not tolerate failure, number 3. You know the penalty.
Yes. Number 1.
Our rules are very simple. If you fail... 12 seconds. One day we must invent a faster working venom.
Tatiana is also a vastly superior Bond girl to Dr. No's Honey Rider, and yes, that's slightly blasphemous among some Bond fans as it is Honey with the iconic bikini entrance. But it's true. Honey did basically nothing and had zero relevance to anything in the plot. On the other hand, Tatiana is absolutely key to this film's story, luring Bond into the field, getting him to the Lecter, and in the end it's she, not Bond, who kills the major villain. Head of Turkish intelligence, Kerim Bey is also a superior Bond ally to Dr. No's Quarrel. Like Quarrel, he sadly fails to make it to the final reel alive, but the on-screen chemistry with Connery is instantaneous and infectiously warm and likable. You totally buy Bond and Bey as fast friends. Last week I criticized the action in Dr. No for not being up to par with what we'd come to expect from the Bond series. And while the series will continue to grow in this department, From Russia with Love represents a Grand Canyon-sized leap in the right direction. Its chases and battles and explosions are 201, bigger, bolder, more kinetic, and more exciting than anything Dr. No showed us. That's not even getting into the scene where James Bond and Red Grant throw down in a train compartment. Free from any gimmicks, this is just a tense, gripping, incredibly well-shot, performed, and directed depiction of two professional killers trying their absolute hardest to murder each other, while the deafening din of the train makes things even more claustrophobic. You won't find any action scene this viciously physical in Jurassic World or Age of Ultron. It's one of my favorite on-screen fights ever. Though this is a tenser, less comic, more serious-minded Bond film than most that would come, that doesn't mean that it doesn't continue the evolution of the series in ways that will cross over into Goldfinger and beyond. Though it's shorter than usual, we have our first pre-title sequence, followed by song and credits. The film also introduces Desmond Llewellyn as Q. He doesn't have his crotchety personality in place yet, but the actor is there, and he'll stay there for almost 40 years until 1999's The World Is Not Enough. And the first gadget too, a briefcase loaded with secret weapons and money and traps.
Now to stop the cartridge exploding, turn the catches horizontally, like that. Then open normally. Now you try it.
Perhaps most importantly, and after Q and pre-title sequence, I don't say this lightly, From Russia with Love abandons composer Monty Norman's tropical tunes from Dr. No and brings in James Bond theme song arranger John Barry as full composer, a job he will reprise in most of the films all the way up through 1987's The Living Daylights. Barry's bold, brassy, colorful, romantic music, still imitated by Bond film composers to this day, is as absolutely key to the series' foundations as Connery himself. I can't imagine these films without it. Overall, I think this is a pretty damn great spy thriller, tense, even Hitchcockian in its best moments. I probably wouldn't start a Bond virgin with this one because frankly it presents kind of a false idea of what the series will be for most of its run, but it's a really interesting and different one to watch once you've built up to it with some of the easier intro Bonds like Goldfinger and GoldenEye. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back next week to discuss the iconic 1964 classic Goldfinger.
From Russia with